if your kids barely call you anymore, if you feel like something broke and you don't know exactly when, it might not be just life. Some patterns repeat. Small attitudes leave deep marks, and some signs, without realizing it, build walls while thinking they're building strength. This might hurt, but it could also fix something that isn't fully lost. Stay with me. Virgo doesn't want to hurt anyone. They want strong, capable, disciplined children. In their mind, correcting is loving, pushing is caring. But here's where everything shifts. When a child constantly hears you can do better, they don't just learn discipline. They learn that what they are right now is not enough. And that feeling lingers far longer than any advice ever does. Virgo often projects their own inner pressure onto their children, the fear of failing, the fear of being judged. So they adjust, critique, refine. They rarely intend to wound, but they don't always pause to affirm first. And children raised this way grow up responsible, yet hesitant to share mistakes, because mistakes feel like proof of disappointment. If Virgo doesn't learn to validate before correcting, their children will respect them but won't open up. And respect without emotional closeness turns into distance over time. But if Virgo learns to say, "I'm proud of you," without adding conditions, the dynamic changes. The phone starts ringing again, not out of duty, out of comfort. Aries loves fiercely, protective, passionate, ready to defend at any second. But Aries runs hot, and what comes next is uncomfortable. When they get angry, they don't measure their tone. Words come fast, loud, sharp. Later, Aries cools down quickly. They move on. But their child doesn't always move on with the same speed. Aries believes intensity equals honesty. They think it's better to explode than to suppress. But children don't remember the intention. They remember how it felt. The tension in the room, the fear in their chest. And over time, they learn something dangerous. Silence feels safer than honesty. If Aries doesn't learn to pause before reacting, their kids won't stop loving them. They'll just stop sharing things. But if Aries channels that fire into protection without intimidation, they become a powerful guide, the kind of parent whose strength feels safe instead of overwhelming. Gemini is fun, engaging, mentally stimulating. Conversations flow easily. But here's what most people won't say out loud. Gemini can be emotionally inconsistent. Present one day, distracted the next. Not always physically gone, but mentally somewhere else. And children notice that shift more than Gemini realizes. Gemini gets bored with repetition, even family routines. It doesn't mean they don't love their children. It means their mind constantly seeks stimulation, so they drift into work, into their phone, into another idea. And the child starts wondering if they are competing with something invisible for attention. If Gemini doesn't create emotional stability, their children grow up unsure of their permanence. They may hesitate to rely on them deeply. But when Gemini truly listens, fully present, undistracted, they become one of the most understanding parents in the Zodiac. And that presence changes everything. Capricorn works hard, provides, sacrifices. They believe love equals security, a stable future, financial safety. But here's the truth that's hard to admit. Presence is not the same as provision. Capricorn thinks they're showing love by building foundations. But children live in the now, not in the retirement plan. Capricorn struggles with vulnerability. Emotional conversations feel uncomfortable. So they show care through action instead of words. They solve problems. They handle logistics. But children need more than solutions. They need warmth. They need to hear affection spoken out loud. If Capricorn never lowers the emotional guard, their children will admire them but won't confide in them. Admiration creates distance when intimacy is missing. But if Capricorn dares to express emotion openly, even awkwardly, the relationship softens, and admiration transforms into connection. Leo loves loudly, proudly, generously. They celebrate their children and want them to shine. But here's the subtle shadow. Sometimes Leo unconsciously competes. If the child's spotlight grows too bright, something inside Leo feels displaced. And that feeling is uncomfortable to confront. Leo thrives on recognition. When attention shifts, even to their own child, they can unintentionally redirect conversations back to themselves. Not out of cruelty, but out of habit. And children start to sense they must dim themselves to protect their parents' ego. If Leo doesn't learn to celebrate without comparison, their kids will shine cautiously. But if Leo turns that pride into pure support, becoming their child's biggest fan, instead of rival, the bond strengthens dramatically. Leo then becomes the loudest voice, cheering in every room. Scorpio loves intensely, deeply, protectively. But Scorpio doesn't just protect, they control. They don't call it control, they call it caution. And this is where things become heavy. Scorpio fears betrayal, fears loss. So they monitor, question, observe, always scanning for threats. Often this comes from past wounds. Scorpio has been hurt before, so they tighten their grip to prevent repetition. But children don't experience that as safety. They feel pressure, interrogation, suspicion, and slowly, they begin editing themselves to avoid triggering doubt. If Scorpio doesn't learn to trust, their children will become experts at hiding. Not because they don't care, but because honesty feels risky. But if Scorpio transforms control into guidance, their loyalty becomes unmatched. They become the parent whose protection feels empowering instead of suffocating. Cancer loves with their whole heart, nurturing, protective, devoted. But here's the hardest truth. Sometimes Cancer loves from fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of being left behind as children grow independent. And without realizing it, they lean emotionally on their kids. Statements like, "You don't call anymore," or "You've changed," may come from insecurity, not manipulation. But the impact is heavy. The child begins to feel responsible for their parents' emotional stability. And roles quietly reverse. The child becomes the caretaker. If Cancer doesn't learn to love without emotional dependency, distance becomes the only way their children can breathe. Not because love is gone, but because independence is necessary. But if Cancer releases guilt and trusts the bond, they become the safest emotional home a child can return to freely. This isn't about blame, it's about awareness. Every sign loves in their own way, but love alone doesn't guarantee closeness. Patterns create distance. Small behaviors, repeated for years, build walls quietly. Yet the same patterns can be dismantled with intention. Maybe your kids haven't been calling lately. Maybe the silence feels confusing. But silence is rarely random. It reflects dynamics built over time, the powerful part. Dynamics can change, and it starts with recognizing yourself without defensiveness. If you saw yourself in any of this, it's not a sentence. It's a wake-up call. You're not being attacked. You're being given a chance. Because the story isn't finished yet, and neither is the relationship. If you made it this far, it wasn't by accident. Comment your sign if this hits close to home. Save this message. One day you'll remember it either when the phone rings or when it doesn't.